And so as I'm talking about the last couple of weeks and today and probably next week and maybe longer, this idea of conscious co-creating, that we want to consciously co-create. And what I believe about that is that each one of us is born into this experience with what some people call the seed code, or this essence of who we are. That we all come into this life experience. Now, some of you believe in reincarnation, and some of you don't, and either way is fine. But this idea that our souls come into and are maybe reborn into this experience. And I believe we're born into this experience because each of us has something unique to give, to share, to express, to bring forth. It is as though we are born with a seed, the Christ seed, if you will, that we are here to nurture, and we are here to grow, and to blossom forth, and to express that in the world. Napoleon Hill talked about it in Think and Grow Rich and in other books that he wrote as it being our definite chief aim. One way of looking at it. Joseph Campbell called it our bliss. Follow your bliss. We may call it our sole purpose or whatever that is. And so I believe we're here to do that, to listen to that still small voice that the song talked about, and to allow it to lead us, to guide us to our highest unfolding. But I want to be clear that what I'm talking about is that we have the opportunity to connect with that consciously, through meditation, through prayer, through contemplation, whatever activity that you might engage in, to connect with that deeper longing within us. But it's also, I want to be very clear that I'm not saying it's a passive thing. I'm not saying that once you get in touch with it, this is what I used to believe, that if I really got in touch with my inner guidance, that I really could just not do anything. That it would just happen. Now, I want to say that things do show up in our lives, that support does come into our lives, I believe, when we're following it, but that doesn't mean we just get to sit back and do nothing. I want to be very clear about that. I'm not suggesting that. I mean, we can look at the example of our guide, our teacher, Jesus. I mean, he knew his purpose, but he didn't just sit back and say, oh, well, it'll just happen. No, he didn't. And I want to say, used to make me nervous when people would come in with their Bibles, but I'm going to, I want to share with you this I was reminded of this too from Luke 4, chapter 16, where it says, this is what it says about Jesus. When he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, he went to the synagogue on the Sabbath day, as was his custom. He stood up to read, and the scroll of the prophet Isaiah was given to him. He unrolled the scroll and found the place where it was written, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." And he rolled up the scroll, gave it back to the attendant, and sat down. The eyes of all in the synagogue were fixed on him. Then he began to say to them, "Today this scripture has been fulfilled in your hearing." And so Jesus, according to the scripture, was very clear about his divine purpose, his bliss. But he didn't just sit back and meditate on it, right? He did something with it. He went out into the world and engaged the world. Moses, if you remember the story of Moses, he did the same thing. He heard the burning bush and said, "Go into Egypt and free my people." There are other stories, many stories in Scripture about that. Jonah. So the purpose is that it helps us to know what that is and then to follow it. Now, I know what some of you are probably saying. I don't have a purpose. I don't know what my purpose is. How do I know what my purpose is? Well, what I want to say is, one, you have a purpose. How do I know that? Because you're here. You're in this form. You're in this room. You still have life. You still have breath. And that life is living you. So I know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that you have something unique to give, to share, to blossom forth, to nurture within you. How do you know what that is? Again, I go back to listening, following, allowing that inner knower to guide you. I know it's not always that simple, not always that easy, but what I've heard and what I believe is that when we follow the thing that really just inspires us, what gives us joy, what we can engage in and sort of lose track of time or, kind of get into the zone with. Do you have something like that in your life? Pay attention to those things. I'm not talking about that your purpose has to be epic. It doesn't have to be epic. It doesn't have to be huge. But I do believe we all have something to give and to share. And so, as I said, getting in touch with that, connecting with that inner light, inner Christ, that shepherd that the song talked about. And it's there to inform us. And so, when I talked about the last couple of weeks, is getting in touch with that and getting in touch with that divine ideal behind all of that and focusing on that. And so, I've talked about that the last couple of weeks. I talked last week about, mentioned Reverend Dr. Michael Beckwith's life visioning process. And the question that he invites us to ask is, what is Spirit's highest vision for my life? And when we ask that question within, we open up. It opens us up to being aware, to receiving the awareness of what that is. What is Spirit's highest vision for my life? And then you can drill that down to what is Spirit's highest vision for this particular project or this particular thing. What is Spirit's highest vision? Letting go of what I think it needs to be. And which brings me to the next question that he invites us to ask. Two questions. What needs to be released in order for this vision to come into manifestation? And what needs to be accepted for this vision to come into manifestation? What needs to be released and what needs to be accepted? And so I'm going to talk a little bit about our power of release, one of our 12 powers, our ability to release things from our lives, release things from our minds, release things out of our consciousness. And I'm going to talk a little bit about our power of judgment, discernment, and a little bit about our power of will, which is our power to actually take action. And so as I meditated on that this week, what is mine to release? The message that came to me is, it's not your business. Or it's none of your business. However you want to say that. It's not your business. Well, when somebody says it's none of your business, what's your reaction? What do you mean it's none of my business? Right? But as I sat with that, what came to me was that what that means is that I need to let go of trying to control it. Because when I have the idea of something that I get in touch with this idea of something that really I want to bring forth, that I believe Spirit wants to bring forth through me, I can find myself getting in my own way. Anybody else ever experienced that? And the way I do that in many ways, in several ways actually, is in trying to micromanage it, trying to control it. I know nobody else does that, but that's kind of my experience. I want to control it, and so what Spirit says, it's not your business. Don't try to control it. Just show up, respond, react, do what you're called to do, but don't try to micromanage it. because that kind of gets in the way. The other thing that Spirit said to me was, you've got to release your judgment of self. You've got to release those negative thoughts about yourself. That I can't do it, I'm too old, who wants to hear another song of mine? Who really needs another book, for God's sake? I mean, what unique thing do you have to say? All of those ideas that can get in the way of Spirit doing its work in us. So it's important for us to release, to use our power of elimination, of release, to just let those things go. Let them go. The other thing, and I'll be honest with you, if you read my blog, I need to let go of what people think of me. That's a hard one. You know, that somebody won't like what I have to say. Somebody doesn't like the way I sing. Somebody doesn't want to hear what I have to say. Whatever that is. And so when I think, oh, well, I have to please everybody, I have to do it in alignment so everybody's happy, everybody likes it, that's me trying to control it again. It's me getting in the way. And so it's important for us to let that go. Now, I want to be very clear about this as well. It would be awesome if that was a one-time thing, wouldn't it? It would be awesome if I could say, oh, I've had this thought, I'm letting it go. It's never going to bother me again. It doesn't work that way, at least in my life. So I want to be very clear that that's a moment-by-moment opportunity. That every time we are aware of a negative thought, it's our opportunity to let it go. Every time when I get involved in, oh, well, somebody's not going to like what I have to say, again, let it go. So it's important for us to be present in the moment, to be aware. Again, I want to tell you again that Charles Fillmore, our co-founder, said that self-awareness is a prelude to Christ consciousness. So self-awareness is a key to us being willing and ready and able to let go. Now, this is where our power of judgment and discernment come in. What do I need to let go of? We have the power to discern that, to judge that, to be aware of what is it that I need to let go of. And then it takes our power of will to do it. Every moment. To let it go and come back to Spirit, come back to that awareness. Now, the other thing I want to say about that is that I'm really dry today, is that sometimes it requires you to let go of things in the physical. Not to scare you, but I think sometimes it does require us to let go of things in the physical, not just in our consciousness, not just in our thinking and feeling, but sometimes in the physical. Sometimes it requires you to let go of a lot of hair. And just kidding about that. But what I'm aware of is that sometimes it requires us to let go of maybe we fill up our time with other things. That our calendar is so full, for whatever reason, that we don't have the opportunity. We don't have the time or the space or the energy to really follow through with what Spirit is wanting us to do. It's so easy for us to get caught up in the day-to-day, the task, and we have to do those things. I'm not suggesting that we totally remove ourselves from the world, because we have to get in. There are things we need to do. But I think there are also things that we do that we don't necessarily need to do. At least that's true for me. And so I think it's important for us to look at that. Do we need to create space in our lives? I heard someone say one time about talking about wanting to create a relationship, and someone said, well, have you created space in your life for someone else? Do you have room in your closet for someone else to come bring their clothes? Do you have room in your bathroom? Have you created a space in your life for that to come into your world? And so I think it's important for us to be aware that we sometimes in the physical. And I'm also going to say this. Sometimes it's important to let go of negative people in your life. If there are people in your life who are telling you you can't, or why would you do that, or that's sort of a crazy idea, or who would want that, or blah, 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 it's time to say thank you and I love you from afar. I'm serious. Because there are people who will do that. And so it's important, I think, to own it for yourself and to allow those things out of your life if they are in any way restricting you. Now, the other piece is what needs to be accepted. And what came to me was that I need to, and I believe this is true for everybody, to accept that we are each unique, wonderful, wondrous, creative beings here in this dimension to bring forth whatever that Spirit is calling us to experience and to express in the world. Again, it's about, okay, I'm releasing that. It's sort of like this idea of denial that we talk about, letting it go. And affirmation is bringing it in. What's true? I'm going to accept this is the truth for me. And that I have what I need. That everything is provided as I need it. I know what I need to know when I need to know it. Accepting that. Allowing that truth. You know the story of Moses when God said, go into that inner voice that said, go into Egypt and free my people. What did Moses do? He argued. Right? Oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not a good speaker. What are people going to think when I, a Jew, go into Egypt and tell Pharaoh to free the Israelites? Isn't that crazy? Why would anybody do that? And so, but the voice said, you have everything you need. People will show up. People will show up to support you. That's key. That is key. And I will be honest, sometimes I can fall down on that as well. Oh, I can do it by myself. I don't need anybody else's help. Well, Spirit sends people along to help you, to support you. And so it's important for us, I think, to be open to that. To be open to someone else's support, whether that's emotional, mental, spiritual, or physical. Sometimes the things that we're doing take some time and effort. And there are people who will show up to help you. And so I think it's important for us to be willing to open to that, the support. And I will say this as well. Boy, whether you resonate with this or not, Again, I have to let go of my attachment to whether you like it or not. But there's also support in the other realms. You know, I believe there are other realms that bring us support. I believe we have guides on the other side, in the other realms, other dimensions. You can call them angels, you can call them guides, spirits, whatever it is that you choose to call them, however you relate to them. That energy that is always a part of us, guiding us, directing us, assisting us, moving us to a greater expression of who we are here to be and to express in the world. And so I believe that we have those powers within us. I want to just review very quickly before I close today, but I want to remind us that some of the things that I've been talking about, I don't know that I've been specific enough about how we use our powers, but when I talk about connecting with that inner knower, we're talking about our 12 powers, I see that as that inner wisdom, that we connect with the divine ideal, that Spirit is within us. That's connecting with that wisdom right in our gut, so to speak, and connecting with it, feeling into it. Feeling how it might manifest in our lives. And then I believe what happens in that is that then we get to activate our power of understanding, which is that power that is up here in your third eye area. So it begins to make sense. The wisdom that you receive, you begin to understand. Then you begin to know how to apply that wisdom that you receive by using the power of understanding. And then I talked about our power of imagination, where we can envision and visualize how that might manifest in the world, to get in touch with that and to have the vision of that. And then to exercise our power of faith, which is to see beyond what is already happening to what we know is happening in other realms, in other dimensions. The activity of spirit, the activity of source in and through whatever that vision is that you receive. It is already done. And that's what faith invites us to see that manifested already. And then today I was talking about the powers of release, letting go of what might be getting in the way, whether that's in our minds, in our hearts, in our bodies, and to then accept what is the truth of us. And so that's really our power of denial and affirmation. And we get to choose, using our power of discernment, our power of judgment, to know what is ours to release, what is ours to accept, and then to employ our power of will to do it, to take the action, to take the step that is required. As I said when I began, this is not a passive thing. Co-creation is not passive. It's quite active. It does require us to accept who we are, what we are, and then to take action that is in alignment with that, to bring that into demonstration, into manifestation. And we have those powers. As Charles Fillmore said, these powers, he called them the 12 powers. They're faculties, they're tools, however you want to use them, but we all have them. And we get to use them. And we get to use those powers to do what is ours to do, to manifest what is ours to manifest, to demonstrate what is ours to bring forth into the world, whatever that is. And again, it's a moment-by-moment opportunity. You may get in touch with something today that is mine to bring forth. You may, in that moment, notice what might be blocking you, practice release, practice acceptance, practice will to then move forward and do what is yours to do. You may find that coming up again the next day. But again, that's why we call it spiritual practice. It requires our implementation and our practice. It's not just about hearing it. It's not just about understanding it. It's not just about, oh, well, if I get it mentally, it's just going to happen. No. We have to do something with it. And we have the opportunity to do something with it. And so I want to encourage you to maybe look at the 12 powers again. Look at what's happening. Take some time this week to really sit with what is spirit, what is God, what is life, what is whatever word really works for you, what is it longing to express through me? And connect with it, feel into it. And then look at what do I need to release in order to really own this and to be this in the world? And so next week I'm going to be talking about when inspiration becomes aspiration and what we do with that and how we then honor the aspirations in the physical and how do we then work through that and bring those into demonstration using our powers of order and strength and love to really bring those into demonstration.